Tell me, would you ever risk your entire life over the smallest, cutest little creature in the world? There was a time where gaming was considered safe. It was a home console thing or handheld console thing, but now gaming has taken over the mobile market. And there's one franchise in particular that have completely capitalized on mobile gaming, and that's Pokemon. I have been a dedicated fan of the series for 20 years, which is how old I am, and have dabbled in pretty much everything that the series has to offer. So today is my goal to richly educate you on the Japanese owned franchise Pokemon. Today we're going to discuss the definition of Pokemon. We're going to talk about the history of Pokemon, the origins, like where did it came from, and we're also going to go over what is Pokemon currently doing today. How is it impacting our current society? So first off, there is a difference between Pokemon as creatures and the Pokemon company. Nintendo, which is a company that partially owns Pokemon, would say this. Pokemon are creatures of all shapes and sizes who, in the Pokemon universe, live in the wild as the animals of that world, or they live alongside humans that are known as trainers in the Pokemon world. So the everyday squirrels that we would see or lizards running around, those would be considered Pokemon in a way in the Pokemon world, except they have special abilities. Pokemon is short for pocket monsters, and they're pretty much used, yeah, for battle, for trade, for research, for exploring, and they're actually caught in a smaller, real live version of this Pokeball that I have here. So what a trainer would do is they throw their Pokeball at a Pokemon, it would get caught, and then when the trainer's ready to use it, they throw it up, the Pokemon comes out and is ready to obey its master's commands. So in our world, a dog would typically say bark, right? But in the Pokemon world, a Pikachu would likely say Pika Pika. So pretty much all Pokemon would generally say a variety of its name rather than saying something like bark or talking like humans would. And ironically, Pikachu is the face of the Pokemon company. Most people know Pikachu, and the Pokemon company is just that. It is a company, it is a joint venture owned by Game Freak, owned by Nintendo, that I mentioned earlier, and also Creatures Inc. Creatures Inc. and Game Freak, they help produce and make some of the Pokemon games that are released today. So next, let's talk about the origins of Pokemon. Now we know what it is, so where did it come from? So Pokemon actually started with Satoshi Tajiri. I hope I'm saying his name right. And the idea actually came to him by his love for insect collection. And they released their first game in February 1996 with 151 Pokemon and sold like millions of copies worldwide. And their major theme was gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon since then has made big social and media moves all across the world. They've released several movies. They have a YouTube channel, social media platforms. They have an anime that's still running today that has been going since 1997, has over 900 episodes. They also have theme parks in Japan and Taiwan, and they have Pokemon cafes that sell exclusive merch in like different places around the world. So we see where they started off. Now it's important to kind of know like what is their relevance today, kind of what is the current impact of Pokemon. So TitleMax.com says that Pokemon is actually the highest grossing franchise in the entire world. They're worth like $92.1 billion, which is pretty impressive, I know. So Pokemon to this day, in order to keep that momentum, is still releasing content. They started off in their first game with like 151 Pokemon, but now they have reached 890 plus Pokemon with their latest game in the franchise. This success has definitely been great, but it has unfortunately led to death and even injuries for some people with what I mentioned earlier, like people risking their lives for the sake of these creatures. There was a game that came out on mobile devices in July of 2016 called Pokemon Go. And it is pretty much an augmented reality game. It uses a real life GPS to kind of force players to physically move from location to location to experience the Pokemon world, but in real life. And people that were playing this game would actually see Pokemon in their phone and see that it's across the street, but cross the street without checking both ways, and then they would get in traffic accidents. The same thing could happen with drivers as well, like drivers playing Pokemon Go. And Pokemon Go actually released an update to where you can't go above a certain speed while playing because it's dangerous. So it's definitely done some. Pokemon has been through some things throughout the years, even through its success. And so in conclusion, I just want to review what we've talked about with you guys. What I've talked about with you guys is just the definition of Pokemon, where it's come from, and then also the history of Pokemon, the origins of it. Like, we know where it started, we know what it is, and we also know the current impact of Pokemon. So maybe if your guys' kids become Pokemon fans, this information will become useful to you guys someday. Thank you so much for listening.
Yay! Good stuff.